The massive halls of the Galactic University echoed with the soft hum of anti-gravity platforms as students from 1,000 worlds rushed to their classes. Among them, 3 junior researchers floated on their own platform, heading to their final assignment meeting. Blue, the tallest of the 3, checked their data pad for the 10th time that morning. Ray kept adjusting their protective suits' temperature settings, while Spark fiddled with their atmospheric sensor readings. None of them had ever failed an assignment. They were the top students in their xenobiology class, chosen from different star systems for their exceptional understanding of life forms across the galaxy. But something about their professor's message had made them nervous. Master Green had never called for a private meeting before. The doors to the professor's office slid open with a gentle whoosh. Inside, holographic displays showed countless worlds spinning slowly in the air. Master Green stood in the center of the room, their green crystalline form glowing softly in the dim light. The professor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of amusement they had learned to recognize over their years of study. "My best students," Master Green's translator hummed. "I have a special assignment for your final thesis." The professor waved a limb, and most of the holographic planets disappeared, leaving a single blue-green world rotating before them. "This is Earth." Blue's upper appendages twitched in confusion. "Earth, the primitive world in the outer spiral arm." "But Professor, we're advanced xenobiologists. Surely there are more challenging subjects for our research." Master Green's crystalline form sparkled. Another sign of amusement. "Ah, you think so. Tell me, what do you know about Earth?" Ray stepped forward, their environmental suit whirring softly. "It's a Class 3 civilization, recently achieved limited space travel. The dominant species are called humans. They haven't even developed proper genetic engineering yet. That's what everyone knows." Spark added, their bioluminescent spots pulsing with confidence. "We could study the gas giants of the Horsehead Nebula or the crystal forests of the core worlds instead." The professor moved closer to the hologram, and suddenly the image changed. It showed temperature variations across the planet's surface. The readings made all 3 students step back in shock. The numbers couldn't be right. No single planet should have such extreme variations and still support life. "Earth," Master Green said slowly, "is classified as something far more interesting than just a Class 3 civilization world." The professor paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "It's a death world." Blue's skin changed color rapidly, a sign of disbelief. But the humans don't even have proper protective shells. How can they survive on a death world?" "That," Master Green's translator hummed with what sounded like satisfaction, "is exactly what you're going to study. Your assignment is to observe Earth and its inhabitants. You will analyze how a supposedly primitive species survives on one of the most challenging planets we've ever encountered." Ray's environmental suit beeped as their heart rate increased. "Professor, the standard observation period for death worlds is 3 cycles. We only have 1 cycle left before graduation. You have been chosen because you are the best," Master Green said firmly. "Your research vessel has been prepared with the latest cloaking technology and observation equipment. You will remain in orbit, conduct your studies, and prepare a comprehensive report on why Earth deserves its death world classification." Spark's bioluminescence had dimmed considerably. "And if we fail?" The professor's crystalline form darkened slightly. "You won't fail. But you might learn something far more valuable than what you'll find in any standard thesis." Master Green turned away from them, a clear sign of dismissal. "Your ship leaves in 3 rotations. I suggest you prepare thoroughly. Earth has a way of surprising even the most prepared observers." As they left the office, all 3 students were unusually quiet. Blue finally broke the silence. "It can't be that bad. We've studied extreme environments before." "Right," Ray agreed, not sounding convinced. "How dangerous could one primitive world be?" Spark pulled up the initial data package on their pad. "Look at these atmospheric composition readings. The oxygen levels alone would cause spontaneous combustion on most worlds." They reached their preparation lab, each lost in their own thoughts. They had one thing in common. None of them believed that studying Earth would be as simple as they first thought. But none of them could have guessed just how wrong their initial assumptions would prove to be. The research vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Blue, Ray, and Spark gathered in the observation deck, their equipment ready to begin their study. The ship's AI had already activated all safety protocols, including the advanced cloaking systems that would keep them hidden from Earth's primitive but surprisingly numerous detection devices. "Look at that star," Spark said, their bioluminescent spots flickering nervously. "It's so unstable." The screens showed their detailed analysis of Earth's sun, with its regular solar flares and radiation bursts that would have instantly sterilized most habitable worlds. Blue moved their upper appendages in a calming pattern. "Remember what Master Green said. We need to observe everything without bias." But even their professional tone couldn't hide their unease as they watched the readings climb higher. The ship moved closer to Earth, passing the red planet in its orbit. Ray, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly made a startled sound. These can't be right. They were staring at the atmospheric readings of their target planet. The pressure variations. "Look at these numbers." The others crowded around the display. Earth's atmosphere showed pressure differences that would crush or tear apart most species they knew. From the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountain peaks, the range was beyond anything they had studied in their xenobiology courses. And the temperatures, Spark added, their glow dimming with each new reading. This one spot shows 50 degrees above freezing, while this region is 40 degrees below, on the same planet. At the same time, they checked their instruments 3 times, not believing the data. Blue forced themselves to remain calm. "Let's focus on one region for our initial observations. Something average." They searched the data and found a location marked as New York City in the human databases. The ship's cameras zoomed in, and all 3 researchers fell silent. Humans were everywhere, moving through their city with casual disregard for conditions that would require emergency protocols on most worlds. They watched as humans walked through rain that would have acidic properties on their home planets, under a sun that bombarded them with radiation, breathing air thick with particles that should have been toxic. "They're not wearing any protective suits," Ray whispered, their suits' sensors whirring as they tried to process what they were seeing. "Look, that small one just fell on the hard surface," and got up. Without medical attention, Spark was rapidly taking notes, their spots pulsing with excitement and fear. Their structures, they build them so tall, despite the constant gravitational stress. And look at their vehicles. They move at speeds that would tear apart our protective fields. Blue had been quiet, watching a group of humans in what their database identified as a park. The humans were deliberately running in circles, raising their internal temperatures on purpose. They're exposing themselves to temperature variations voluntarily. For entertainment. The ship's AI interrupted their observations with an urgent alert. A massive storm system was approaching the city. The researchers expected to see the humans rushing to shelter or activating emergency protocols. Instead, they watched in amazement as most humans simply opened small portable force fields, umbrellas, according to the database, and continued their activities. "This is impossible," Ray said, checking their readings again. "The electrical discharges in that storm could power a small city on our worlds, but they're just ignoring it." They spent the next few hours watching as the storm passed over the city. The humans barely seemed to notice. Young ones even jumped and collected water puddles, despite the obvious risks of unknown chemical composition and possible pathogens. "We need more data," Blue finally said, their color shifting to a deeper shade of uncertainty. The professor was right. This isn't just a study of a primitive world. These humans, they're living in conditions that would qualify as a constant emergency on any civilized planet. Spark's bioluminescence had taken on a pattern they'd never shown before. "Should we send an initial report to Master Green?" Not yet, Blue decided, watching as a human child ate something called an ice cream in near-freezing temperatures. I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface of why Earth is classified as a death world. We need to observe more. Much more. The three researchers settled in for their next observation shift, each privately wondering what other impossible things they would discover about this terrifying yet fascinating world and its seemingly indestructible inhabitants. After 3 days of general observation, Ray convinced the others that they needed to study human biology more closely. The ship's advanced scanners could provide detailed information about human physiology without detection, and what they discovered left them speechless. "This can't be possible," Ray said, running the scans for the 4th time. "Their bones. They'd break them, and then they'd just grow back together." The medical database they were building seemed more like horror stories than scientific facts. Blue moved closer to the display, their color shifting rapidly between shades of disbelief. "And look at their healing process. They just continue their activities while injured. How are they not in constant pain?" The scans showed hundreds of humans with various injuries, most of them walking around as if nothing was wrong. Some had metal pins in their bones. Others had scars that showed massive previous injuries. Yet they all just kept going about their daily lives. "That's not even the worst part," Spark said, their bioluminescent spots barely glowing as they pulled up new data. "Look at what they eat. Their digestive system can handle almost anything." The screen filled with images of humans consuming an impossible variety of substances. Ray's environmental suit made distressed beeping sounds as they processed the information. They deliberately eat things that cause chemical burns to their mouths. And they call it spicy, for pleasure. "And look at this." Blue pointed at another set of readings. "They regularly poison themselves with substances that damage their internal organs. They call it drinking alcohol, and do it socially." The concept of voluntarily consuming toxins for entertainment was beyond their comprehension. The ship's AI brought their attention to a new set of scans. They were observing a group of humans in something called a gym. The aliens watched in horror as humans deliberately tore their muscle fibers by lifting heavy objects repeatedly. "They're damaging themselves on purpose," Spark whispered. "And their bodies respond by becoming stronger. This defies everything we know about biological preservation." Ray was frantically updating their research notes. "Their entire bodies are designed for damage and repair. Look at their skin. It constantly regenerates. Their liver can regrow itself. They have backup organs. They can survive with parts of their brain removed." The most shocking discovery came when they studied human endurance. They found humans participating in something called a marathon, running for hours under the burning sun. "Their temperature regulation is unlike anything we've seen," Blue noted, their professional tone failing to hide their amazement. "They leak water from their skin to cool down and can keep moving for hours. They don't even need to rest properly. They can keep going while partially unconscious in something they call microsleep." Spark pulled up more data about human sleep patterns. "Speaking of sleep, they regularly hallucinate during their rest cycle and consider it normal. They call them dreams. How do they maintain sanity?" The researchers spent hours documenting the seemingly endless list of human biological capabilities. Humans could survive extreme blood loss, adapt to high altitudes, hold their breath underwater, and resist diseases that would devastate most species. "Here's something interesting," Ray said after a while. "Their bodies are constantly at war. Their internal defense system attacks and destroys invaders constantly. They're not even aware of the battles happening inside them every moment." Blue was looking at population data, their color now a deep shade of wonder. "And despite all these dangers, despite living in bodies that are constantly fighting for survival, they keep multiplying. Their population grows even in the harshest conditions. Should we?" Spark's spots pulsed with uncertainty. "Should we mention in our report that they consider all of this normal? That their medical students have to be taught not to be concerned when they see exposed bones or internal organs? Ray's suit needed 3 attempts to regulate their elevated stress signals. How do we explain to the university that humans can survive things that would kill any reasonable species? That they do it so casually they don't even consider it remarkable. We don't explain, Blue said firmly. We show them the data. But first, we need to understand more. These humans, they're not just surviving on a death world. They are Deathworlders themselves, walking disaster zones that somehow function as a society. The 3 researchers looked at their growing database of human biological capabilities, each privately wondering what other impossible discoveries awaited them. What they had learned about human physiology was already beyond belief, but something told them they had only begun to understand just how terrifying Earth's dominant species truly was. Spark spent a full day recalibrating their environmental sensors. The readings they were getting from Earth's various regions seemed too extreme to be real. The 3 researchers had moved their ship through different time zones, observing how humans lived in completely different environments across their planet. They call this place Death Valley, Spark said, their bioluminescent spots flickering rapidly with excitement. The temperature here reaches levels that would melt our protective suits, and humans drive through it for fun. The screen showed vehicles moving across a vast desert landscape, their occupants protected by nothing more than thin metal shells and something called air conditioning. Blue was monitoring a different location entirely. Look at this settlement called Oinyakan. The temperature is so low it would freeze our ship's fuel, but humans live there year-round. They just put on extra layers of dead plant and animal fibers they call clothes and continue their daily activities. That's nothing, Ray called from their station. I'm watching humans climb something called Mount Everest. The air is so thin there that their brains begin to die from lack of oxygen, and they consider this a recreational activity. The screen showed tiny figures pushing through howling winds and treacherous ice, treating the deadly conditions as a challenge to overcome. Spark brought up new data about Earth's oceans. The pressure variations in their waters are incredible. Some humans dive so deep their blood should boil from the pressure changes. They call it free diving and compete to see who can go deepest. The researchers watched in amazement as humans casually adapted to conditions that would be considered catastrophic on any other world. They saw people surfing on waves that could crush steel, spelunking in caves that should collapse from geological pressure, and living in areas with active volcanoes. Their gravity is much stronger than standard habitable worlds, Blue noted, reviewing their measurements. No wonder their bodies are so dense and resilient. They're constantly fighting against a force that would cripple most species. Ray had been studying atmospheric data. The oxygen levels in their atmosphere are incredibly high. On most worlds, this would cause widespread fires. Instead, their planet's plant life produces it continuously, and humans have evolved to depend on it. The ship's sensors detected a massive storm forming over an area called the Pacific Ocean. The researchers expected to see nearby human settlements evacuating. Instead, they watched in disbelief as something called storm chasers deliberately drove towards the danger. Their entire planet is trying to kill them, Spark observed, their glow pulsing with a mixture of fear and admiration. Look at these readings. Constant electromagnetic disturbances, regular seismic activities, atmospheric toxins, harmful radiation from their sun, microscopic predators in their air and water. And they just adapted to all of it, Blue finished, their color showing deep thought. More than that, they seem to thrive on challenging these conditions. Here, look at these humans. They're deliberately jumping out of flying vehicles for entertainment. Ray's environmental suit had given up trying to regulate their stress responses. I've been analyzing their sports and leisure activities. They intentionally seek out activities that simulate survival situations. They climb frozen waterfalls. They jump between mountains wearing nothing but fabric wings. They dive into underwater caves. The screens filled with images of humans engaging in what they called extreme sports. The researchers watched as people rode massive waves, scaled sheer cliffs without safety equipment, and raced vehicles at speeds that broke the sound barrier. Most species evolved to avoid danger, Spark said quietly. Humans evolved to face it head-on. They don't just survive these conditions. They challenge them, push their limits, deliberately seek out the most dangerous aspects of their already dangerous world. Blue was adding final notes to their environmental analysis. No wonder the university classified Earth as special. The conditions here would be considered apocalyptic on most worlds. But humans, they made these conditions their playground. Should we send a warning to the university? Ray asked, watching a human child learning to ski down a frozen mountain slope, about how humans not only survive, but intentionally seek out deadly conditions for fun. They wouldn't believe us without proof, Blue responded. But we're not done yet. We still need to understand how their society developed under these conditions. Something tells me their history will be just as shocking as their environment. The three researchers continued their observations, each privately wondering if anything could still surprise them about this incredible Deathworld and its seemingly indestructible inhabitants. They had no idea that their study of human history would soon prove even more terrifying than the environmental challenges they'd discovered. The three researchers began studying human historical records, expecting to find evidence of how Earth's harsh conditions had slowed their development. Instead, they discovered something far more terrifying. Humans hadn't just survived their planet's challenges, they had emerged stronger from each disaster. Look at this, Blue said, their color pale with shock. They call it the Ice Age. Their entire planet froze over multiple times. Most species would have gone extinct, but humans, they made tools, discovered fire, and spread across the world. The screens showed ancient human settlements surviving in conditions that would have wiped out most civilizations. Ray was studying different historical records. They survived a massive asteroid impact that killed most large life forms on their planet. Instead of dying out, they evolved from small creatures into the dominant species. They literally used global catastrophe as an evolutionary opportunity. That's not even the worst part, Spark added, their bioluminescent spots barely glowing. Look at these records of something they call the Black Death. A microscopic organism killed half their population in some regions, but the survivors, they developed stronger immune systems and rebuilt their societies even bigger than before. The researchers discovered humans had faced countless natural disasters. Volcanoes had blocked out their sun for years. Earthquakes had swallowed entire cities. Floods had drowned vast regions. Yet human population kept growing, their technology advancing despite everything their planet threw at them. This is remarkable, Blue said, studying records of human wars. They survived their own attempts at self-destruction. They developed weapons that could crack their planet's crust and somehow didn't wipe themselves out. Their cities were burned to the ground, and they just built them again. Bigger, stronger. Spark had found records of recent history. They faced invisible enemies called viruses that spread across their whole planet. Instead of hiding, they developed new medicines in months that would take other species decades to create. They shared knowledge across their world and fought back together. The ship's AI kept finding more examples of human resilience. It showed them records of cities rebuilding after massive fires, communities surviving years-long droughts, and populations adapting to radical climate changes. Their adaptability is unprecedented, Ray noted, their environmental suits struggling to regulate their elevated stress levels. Here's a city called Phoenix. It exists in a desert that regularly reaches killing temperatures. Instead of leaving, humans built a massive settlement there and created artificial cold zones throughout it. Blue was watching historical videos of something called the space race. They looked at the empty void between planets, something that terrifies most species, and decided to go there with technology that barely worked. They reached their moon using computers less powerful than our portable translators. I found something even more incredible, Spark said, their glow pulsing with excitement and fear. Humans don't just survive disasters, they study them. They have entire fields of science dedicated to understanding catastrophes. They build special structures to test extreme conditions. They simulate disasters to prepare for them. The researchers watched videos of human disaster preparation. They saw buildings being shaken by artificial earthquakes, planes being crashed on purpose, and ships being sunk in controlled tests. Humans weren't just reacting to disasters. They were actively learning from them. No other species does this, Ray said quietly. Most civilizations try to avoid dangerous conditions. Humans seek them out, study them, and figure out how to survive them better next time. It's like their entire history is one long experiment in survival. Blue had been unusually quiet, studying population graphs. Look at this pattern. Every time there's a disaster, human population drops. But then it grows back even faster. It's like the whole species treats survival as a challenge to overcome rather than a crisis to avoid. Should we include in our report how they document their disasters? Spark asked, watching historical footage of something called tornado chasers. They turn their worst experiences into something called movies and share them for entertainment. Include everything, Blue decided, their color showing deep respect. The university needs to understand. Earth isn't just a death world because of its conditions. It's a death world because it created a species that turns deadly challenges into opportunities for growth. The researchers continued studying human history, each new discovery adding to their understanding of why Earth's classification was unique in the galaxy. But they had no idea that their biggest revelation about human resilience was still to come. The ship's emergency alarms blared without warning, startling all three researchers from their studies. Red warning lights flashed across every screen as the ship's AI reported a massive solar event heading straight for them. Earth's sun had just released the largest solar flare they had ever witnessed. Move the ship behind Earth's moon, Blue ordered, their color flickering with panic. We need to shield ourselves from the radiation. Their own star systems had minimal solar activity, and their protective technology wasn't designed for such intense solar events. Ray's environmental suit was beeping frantically. The radiation levels are off the charts. This kind of solar storm would sterilize most habitable planets. We need to warn the humans. They reached for the emergency broadcast controls, but Spark stopped them. Look, Spark said, their bioluminescent spots pulsing rapidly. Look at Earth's response. The screen showed something incredible happening. Earth's magnetic field was shifting, creating a powerful shield against the incoming solar storm. The three researchers watched in amazement as the planet's natural defenses activated. The magnetic field danced with colorful auroras, spreading from the poles towards the equator as it deflected the deadly solar radiation. But what truly shocked them wasn't the planet's defense, it was the humans' reaction. They're not doing anything, Blue whispered in disbelief. Their instruments have detected the solar flare, but they're just continuing their normal activities. The screen showed humans going about their daily lives, walking in parks, driving to work, children playing in schools. Ray quickly pulled up human scientific data. They've known about these solar storms for centuries. Look at this. They've built their power grids and satellites to withstand them. They treat it like a minor inconvenience. Minor inconvenience. Spark's glow flickered with shock. This level of radiation would require immediate planetary evacuation on most worlds. But humans, they've adapted their entire civilization to live under these conditions. The ship's sensors recorded everything as the solar storm washed over Earth. The planet's magnetic field channeled most of the radiation around the atmosphere, creating spectacular light shows that humans gathered outside to watch and photograph. Some human scientists were actually excited about the event, launching special instruments to study it. Now I understand, Blue said quietly, their color shifting to a deep shade of revelation. This is why Earth produces such resilient life. Their planet doesn't just face occasional disasters. It's built to handle them. And so are its inhabitants. Ray was analyzing the data from their sensors. The magnetic field, the thick atmosphere, the radiation-resistant biology of Earth life. It's all connected. Earth isn't just a hostile world. It's a fortress designed by evolution to protect and strengthen life. The researchers watched as human telecommunications continued working through backup systems, power grids automatically adjusted to avoid overload, and satellites shifted their positions to minimize damage. Generations of living under these conditions had taught humans to build redundancy into everything. They don't just survive here, Spark realized, their spots glowing with understanding. They evolved here because of these conditions, not despite them. Every challenge their world presence has shaped them to be stronger. Blue was making rapid notes in their research log. Think about everything we've seen. Their bodies heal from incredible damage because they evolved on a high-gravity world full of dangers. They can eat almost anything because their planet's biology is so diverse and sometimes toxic. They seek out challenges because their entire evolutionary history is based on overcoming them. And their technology. Ray added, watching humans calmly check their radiation monitoring equipment. They don't build it to avoid disasters. They build it to work despite disasters. Everything about their civilization is designed with multiple backup systems, just like their bodies. The solar storm lasted for hours. The researchers stayed safe behind the moon, watching as Earth and its inhabitants handled a catastrophic event as if it were nothing unusual. Because for them, it wasn't unusual. It was just another day on their Deathworld. We need to completely revise our understanding of Deathworld classifications, Blue said finally. Earth isn't just a challenging environment that happens to support life. It's an entire system designed to create and strengthen life through constant challenges. As the solar storm subsided, leaving Earth and its inhabitants completely unfazed, the three researchers knew they had witnessed something that would change galactic science forever. They had finally understood the true nature of Earth, not just as a death world, but as the ultimate crucible for creating a species that could survive anything the universe threw at them. The Grand Lecture Hall of the Galactic University was completely full. Students and professors from hundreds of worlds had gathered to hear the presentation that had caused such controversy in the scientific community. At the center of the stage, Blue, Ray, and Spark stood before their data displays, their research about to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about life in the universe. Master Green sat in the front row, their crystalline form glowing with quiet satisfaction. The professor had known exactly what these students would discover, and now it was time for everyone else to understand as well. Honored colleagues, Blue began, their color steady with newfound confidence. We went to Earth expecting to study a primitive world. Instead, we discovered that every assumption we had about planetary classification and species development needs to be reconsidered. The screens behind them lit up with their recordings. The audience gasped as they watched humans casually surviving conditions that would require emergency protocols on most worlds. Ray stepped forward, their environmental suit now modified to handle more extreme conditions after their Earth experience. Look at these readings, Ray said, displaying their atmospheric data. Earth's gravity is 30% stronger than standard habitable worlds. Its atmospheric pressure variations would crush most species. Its temperature ranges from lethal cold to lethal heat. Its oxygen levels should cause constant fires. And yet, Spark continued, their bioluminescence pulsing with excitement. And yet humans don't just survive these conditions. They thrive in them. They build cities in deserts, in frozen wastelands, in flood zones, and on fault lines. They climb mountains where the air is too thin to breathe, dive into crushing ocean depths, and deliberately seek out the most extreme conditions for recreation. The audience murmured in disbelief as they watched videos of human activities. Blue changed the display to show their biological data. Their bodies are extraordinary. They heal from injuries that would kill most species. They can survive partial organ failure. They can adapt to almost any environment. Their immune systems wage constant warfare against invasive organisms, and win. But the most important discovery wasn't about their physical capabilities, Ray added, "It was about their relationship with their world. Earth isn't just a death world, it's a forge. Every challenge it presents has shaped humans into stronger, more adaptable beings." Spark brought up their historical data. Look at their history. Multiple extinction-level events, global climate changes, devastating plagues, regular natural disasters. Most species would have gone extinct or remained primitive. Humans turned each disaster into an opportunity for advancement. The screens showed humanity's progress through the ages, from simple tools to space stations, from basic shelters to megacities, from fighting for survival to exploring their solar system. The audience watched in stunned silence as they realized the implications. "We propose a new classification," Blue announced. "Earth isn't just a death world. It's a Class X evolutionary crucible. Its constant challenges don't limit life. They drive it to develop in ways we never imagined possible. Humans aren't primitive survivors of a harsh world. They are its ultimate creation, a species forged by conditions we considered impossible to survive." Ray displayed their final data set. Their technology reflects this reality. They don't build things to avoid challenges. They build them to endure through challenges. Every human system, from their bodies to their cities, is designed with multiple redundancies. They don't run from disasters. They prepare for them, study them, and overcome them. And most importantly, Spark concluded, they're glow-bright with conviction. They seek out new challenges. They intentionally explore dangerous conditions. They push their limits constantly. In their art, their sports, their science, everything they do is driven by a desire to become stronger, to adapt, to overcome. The lecture hall erupted in discussion. Professors argued about the implications for galactic biology. Students frantically took notes. But Master Green simply sat there, watching their three best students share the truth they have discovered. Blue raised their appendages for silence. "Our final recommendation is this. Earth should not just be studied as a dangerous world. It should be recognized as the standard by which we measure species resilience. And humans," they paused, their color showing deep respect. "Humans should not be seen as primitive beings who merely survive their harsh world. They should be understood as the ultimate example of what life can become when faced with constant challenges." As the audience debated their findings, Master Green finally stood. "And now you understand," the professor said, addressing not just the three researchers but the entire gathering, "why I sent my best students to study Earth. Because sometimes the most important discoveries come from the places we least expect. And sometimes the species we think are primitive turn out to be the ones with the most to teach us." The three researchers looked at each other, remembering their initial dismissal of Earth as a primitive world. They had gone to study what they thought was a simple assignment. Instead, they had discovered something that would change galactic science forever, and their own understanding of what it truly means to survive.